Hello, welcome to this video where I'm going to tell a story on how to become a Play Pokemon champion in Pokemon Go. This is not a recap of the Barcelona special event stream, nor am I going deeper into the battles. I mean, after all, I shoutcasted that event myself and many of these battles. But I will put the link in the description in case you missed it and you do want to look back at it. Now, long story short, about I believe 100 players participated in the Barcelona special event. 8 came out victorious on day 1 to qualify for day 2. You'll see some teams here on the left. This is from the actual broadcast, and if you want to take a look, just pause this real quick. And again, if you don't want any spoilers, just watch this later. And these were the 4 players that earned a medal here. Now, but how did Zwallos become the special event champion? Because it's not just playing at a tournament. There's a whole story behind all of his play Pokemon experience. The first tournament Zwallos ever played was the Last Chance qualifier in 2022. Only the 2 winners of the 2 bracket in this tournament would proceed to qualify for the World Championships following the next day. Zwallos didn't make it, but he did manage to get an impressive 7 wins. Now, let's take a look at his 2023 season. The first play Pokemon Zwallos played was Liverpool. This was the 5th European tournament of the season, and it was the biggest one to date. 16 players would make it to day 2 in this tournament, and Zwallos was one of them. He won 4 battles in a row to do so, and he even brought an Ampharos and a Tapu Fini. Day 2 went awful, however, as he lost 2 battles consecutively against a Mind Joke and Dex. He told us on the weekly podcast on Stadium Cast that he should have trusted more in his Ampharos this tournament. The winner of this tournament, Human Catcher Bug, managed to avoid the Ampharos that would have brought a lot of difficulties to his team. The second tournament Zwallos played was in his home country, Germany, in Bochum. This tournament only had 57 participants, as it took place during a popular global event, the Hoenn Tour. Zwallos went a little bit spicier here and brought a Shadow Charizard to his team, but he lost quickly in round 2 to the Polish player Snorak. He still managed to pull off 4 wins, but didn't make it into day 2. The third tournament Zwallos played in the 2023 season was the EUIC. This tournament was the first to cap out at 256 players. So many of the elite European players came here, including myself. Unfortunately, Zwallos didn't have much success here either. This was his worst performance to date, winning only 2 battles in this tournament. The last tournament that he played was in Hartford, but this was not a tournament with the goal of qualifying. This one was to meet up with many of his North American friends. He got 5 wins there and then tweeted out that he was pretty sure he was done with competitive play after all of this. Now, the first European tournament of 2024, Zwallos decided to compete. His Hartford performance and experience and the changes made to the meta renewed the motivation of the dormant beast. The reason why I wanted to tell Zwallos Tournament is because it has all the elements of a good tournament run. We're actually going through all the phases of it. Each opponent is a different challenge to overcome. Let's take a look first at the team that Zwallos brought. The team of Zwallos has a lot of good synergy, but I think the best way to look at the team is to divide it in 3 cores. The first core is the Medicham Lickitung core. Zwallos likes his spicier picks, but he also appreciates the flexibility and the safest core in the current metagame. The biggest threat to this core is arguably Mandibuzz, which isn't even that common. Zwallos also goes double down on the Medicham, running Dynamic Punch to win the Zero Shield scenario against Lickitung, Umbreon and Registeel. Specific Medicham work very well, even without Psychic in the mirror, if they run a high attack, high defense and low HP IV spread. The second core we see here is Pelipper and Venusaur. Both Pokemon are quite fragile, probably Zwallos' favorite type of Pokemon to be honest, but they excel in their typing. Pelipper only really feeds electric types, and in this meta, that's mainly Lantern and Registeel with Zap Cannon. Venusaur covers Pelipper perfectly in that sense because Venusaur defeats those. But Venusaur is a difficult Pokemon to use because it can tear through teams in the right spot, but it doesn't do well in neutral matchups if it's behind in energy due to its fragile nature, such as Sableye for example. If you're 1 Vimo behind, you lose that. The Pelipper also defeats the enemy of the Alolan Sandslash, the Medicham. The third core is the core that Zwallos used the most in his path to victory. While other Pokemon complemented this core too, the Sableye and the Alolan Sandslash with Power Snow paired so well together. Zwallos' team lacks a proper Lickitung answer, and the Power Snow Alolan Sandslash comes in handy here. It does worse against Lantern and Registeel, but Zwallos has other Pokemon to deal with those. To protect Alolan Sandslash from Medicham and Deoxys defense, he paired it with Sableye. This Pokemon has fallen somewhat out of the meta, and I think that's because of Lickitung and the fear of Carbink, but it's still the prime answer to both psychic fighters. It's also incredibly neutral in the meta and sometimes even takes shield off the Lickitung that answers it. So that's team analysis. If you want to hear more about Zwallos' thoughts, you should listen to the podcast episode that we have with him on Stadium Cast. The link of that will be in the description. Now let's take a look at the challenges that he had in his tournament run. The first 2 rounds Zwallos had were not on stream, so I will not be reviewing those. We'll be taking a look at the ones that were played on stream. The first matchup on stream is against Dan V546. This is actually the player who defeated me with Shadow Swanna in the LCQ in London 2022. He likes to run spicy Pokemon, and he does it again in Barcelona. It's an unusual team composition of Greninja and Shadow Nidoqueen paired with Bulk. The challenge in this opponent is not the composition of his team, but rather the way he tries to predict your team. This can be very difficult to play against, or very easy if you get the right lead. In game 1, we see no respect for an Alolan Sandslash lead. Shadow Claw Alolan Sandslash would have destroyed this Cresselia lead with the Registeel in the back. At this point, Power Snow wasn't revealed yet, but Zwallos has a good plan. He baits out the double with the Sableye, gains some shield advantage, and then cleans up with the Alolan Sandslash against the Registeel and the Cresselia. Game 2, Dan V brings an even riskier line. He leads the Greninja with a Registeel in the back. If he leads into the Medicham, this would have been absolutely unplayable for him. However, Dan wasn't prepared to deal with a Venusaur safe swap. Because the strategy is predicting the opponent's team, it falls apart when that unexpected Pokemon pops out. Registeel loses switch advantage and Zwallos flips the matchup. This allows Zwallos to align Medicham to Greninja and Alolan Sandslash to Cresselia, and thus he wins the battle. Dan V is very good in predicting opponents' teams, and this is definitely a type of player you may run into during your tournament runs. The next topic I will talk about is misplace. I think this topic is a little bit controversial to talk about because some might take it as disrespectful, but you'll actually see the many tournament winners' stories. And when I as a competitor make a misplay, I know darn well that I did that, and I don't like to see it back too. The point that I want to make, however, with this topic is that if you want to win the tournament, you need to be the person to make the least amount of misplays. After the matchup against Dan V, Zwallos played against the Spanish battler Ozuskin off stream. His next matchup on stream will be against one of the top players from Czech, Matisse. In Game 1, Matisse won through good alignment. In Game 2, Zwallos won through good alignment. Decisive game number 3 is the game either player can pick up. Zwallos leads his Power Snow Alolan Sandslash into Frostlass. This is not a bad matchup for Frostlass, as one Shadow Ball puts Alolan Sandslash into the red. Matisse swaps immediately into Lickitung, however, probably trying to bait out a potential Medicham. This is actually great for Zwallos, because the only real answer Matisse has for his Sableye is that Lickitung. While there are many paths to victory here, both players still are able to take this game. Zwallos makes the first slip here, though. He tries to catch a Focus Blast from Registeel on his Venusaur and he fails, and that leaves him to go 2 shields down in the process. This makes the Frostlass from Matisse very strong. And now the end game is crucial. Matisse has the shields and the momentum to get to 2 charge attacks when facing the Alolan Sandslash. Frostlass generally wins CMP over Sableye too, so you could deny all the energy Sableye has. But it seems Matisse has completely lost track of energy in the game. He doesn't build up even remotely enough energy, and Zwallos takes out the Frostlass to win game number 3. When you're playing on stage, a lot of pressure comes into play. This may have led to the crucial mistakes we saw in this battle earlier. Both players played phenomenal, but the player who makes the least mistakes wins the battle. Now, speaking of pressure, that's the next topic that I want to go into. The next matchup we take a look at is Zwallos versus Tomahawk UK. I can already hear Tomahawk saying, I know what this is about. This battle is the perfect showcase of pressure. This is where you start overthinking your gameplay, forget the counts of the opponent's Pokemon, and even their health. The battle starts with a Lantern lead from Tomahawk into Alolan Sandslash from Zwallos. Zwallos tries to soak the energy from the Lantern on Lickitung, but fails to do so. He probably tries to bait out a potential Diggersby to free up the Sableye in the back, but there is none. As the battle progresses, Tomahawk is able to weaken the Alolan Sandslash from Zwallos that poses a huge threat to his line of 3. As the drone is shielded by the Lantern, Zwallos thinks ahead. Surely his opponent will try to catch the drone on something else. Tomahawk stays in the matchup, however, knowing he would live the debuff drone. Tomahawk answers the Sableye with the Superior, which will take this matchup, but he forgot about the exact HP and energy of the Alolan Sandslash now. He is afraid the Alolan Sandslash might farm down his superior if he wins his matchup against a Sableye. Little does he know, the Alolan Sandslash is knocked out by one Vine Whip and it already has a Drillrun stored. Zwallos played a nearly perfect battle here, and that's because his opponent was unable to focus on all the things going on in this game. One of the key things you need to do in a championship is to stay focused. Practice this. My friend Magic Mason told me he usually plays with sound and music, because it helps isolate himself from everything but the battle. And he's had great success in play Pokemon tournaments too. The next topic is a short one. This is the knowledge of the opponent. There's nothing you can do about this once you perform well and you play on stream. How do they anticipate to knowing your movesets? Patman knows on day 2 that Zwallos has Power Snow on his Alolan Sandslash. Let's take a look at the lineup he brings against Zwallos in the winners finals. Patman brings Registeel, Lickitung and Gligar. This is a very safe lineup, and here's why. Patman knows that Alolan Sandslash runs Power Snow. Shadow Claw Alolan Sandslash wins the 2-shield against Registeel extremely hard, but Power Snow doesn't. This means that he can use his Registeel as an Alolan Sandslash answer. You'd think that he runs a line of 3 that is weak to Alolan Sandslash in the lead and in the back with the Gligar, but he's not. Patman also knows that the Medicham runs Dynamic Punch instead of Psychic. This makes Registeel worse, but Lickitung still does very well in the 1 and 2 shield scenarios. It's not ideal to swap your Lickitung into a Medicham lead, but the worst case scenario, your Lickitung is answered by that Power Snow Alolan Sandslash, and then the Gligar doesn't have to deal with that. The next topic I want to feature in this same set of battles. This is the peak performance. In battle number 3 of the winners final, we have Zwallos leading his Medicham into the Gligar, which is not ideal, especially on the lead. He safe switches his Sableye, pulls out that Lickitung. I've sped this up quite a lot, just because I want to go through it quickly. And again, I don't want to feature battles exactly in this video, but this one I do want to go through. Because one essential thing that he does here, Zwallos, is get that shield advantage against the Lickitung. And at this point, I think Patman already knew at this point. This is really tough. This Lickitung is still going to get a lot of body slams off here, so it still puts in a lot of work. But one thing that Zwallos does very well here is that if you can farm down something with Medicham, you have the Ice Punch for the Gligar, and they're double super effective. So, you put in a lot of work there. You have a shield advantage here, and now Pelipper comes in. One thing you need to keep in mind with Pokemon like Pelipper, Lickitung, Umbreon, they're very spammy. And Lickitung and Umbreon are also very bulky, so is Registeel. And that means that if you throw a lot of charge attacks, you can stall the clock much longer. So sometimes, whereas a match looks very RPS, right, because Patman has all the answers here for whatever Zwallos has, it's not exactly over yet, right? Patman basically cannot throw there, which is a good play, because otherwise he gets farmed down by the Pelipper, and the Pelipper gets too many Weather Balls. But at this point, the Pelipper already has a Weather Ball, and this way, Zwallos plays himself perfectly out of an RPS matchup, and that's what I call peak performance. When you know you're in charge, your opponent has all the answers for what you have, but they are not in charge. You are the one who is leading the battle. The next phase in the tournament is the mutual respect phase. At this point, you've gotten so far in the tournament that you're just being happy getting there in the first place. I've added this interview segment of my co-caster, Koning Lionheart, with Patman and Zwallos.
Do you guys have anything to say to each other before the game starts?
GG's and good luck, have fun.
Good games earlier. Okay, I almost told him my strategies as well. But yeah, like may the better battler win. You already played an incredible tournament. Yeah,
likewise.
All right, guys, you have heard it. We are in for a fair and for a great grand finals.
The final phase is getting to know your opponent. In the grand finals, you may play up to 10 battles against your opponent. Zwallos comes in from the loser's side as he lost to Patman before, so he needs to bracket reset first. That means after he wins the first best out of 5, the bracket is reset, and both players have to play another best out of 5. The first best out of 5 is a remarkable one. Zwallos seems to have learned from his previous battles against Patman and takes game 1. Patman was very confident with a line ABA weak to Alolan Sandslash with Lickitung and Gligar. But Zwallos didn't think he'd do it again. In fact, Patman does this 5 battles in a row, and the last battle is the perfect example of how Zwallos adapts. In the final battle, Patman goes again with that ABA strategy against the Alolan Sandslash. He won 2 battles with it, after all. He wants to win the lead against the Medicham, because he doesn't want the potential Alolan Sandslash on his Gligar. But Zwallos pulls the reverse Uno card here. Instead of trying to fight for switch advantage, he farms a ton of energy on the Alolan Sandslash. Even Dugong struggles here, because Ice Shards are double resisted, so Patman cannot farm it down. On top of that, Zwallos went double down on countering the Gligar. Pataman is forced to bring Dugong into Alolan Sensors, but little does he know that the Gligar still won't have much play. This strategy of Zwallos that completely counters the play of Pataman leads to the bracket reset. In the Grand Finals, Pataman is now the one to try and adapt. He brings the Deoxys defense, but it's not enough. Halfway the bracket reset, Pataman is 0-2 down, and he lost 4 battles in a row. He manages to get 1 point back, but Zwallos adapts to the change that Pataman made. He brings the Sableye back. And this is where it gets nasty. Zwallos knows Pataman too well by now that he knows he likes winning the lead. In the final battle, Zwallos leads his Lickitung into Dugong. This is slightly favorable for Lickitung due to the super effective Power Whip, but Dugong wins the 2 shields if it shields the first 2 attacks. Knowing this, Zwallos lands a Body Slam bait, which frustrates Pataman. Switch advantage is so important here, but Pataman decides to save the Dugong and bring in the Lickitung. And at this point, the game is very much over. Zwallos has a shield advantage, aligns his Alolan Sensors to the Lickitung, and guess where the Sableye ends up?
Out when you get icy with it. Oh,
Going for the combo play!
Power Whip is going to connect here, and after that, guess what? It's Deoxys defense versus the Sableye, the nightmare matchup of Deoxys defense.
Man knows Zwallos is shaking his head. He's realizing now this is so good for him. The Sableye is going to devour this Deoxys. For the
Charged
Dugong here.
attack priority! Dugong is at 1% HP! The foul play is going to connect, and Zwallos, the German engineer, is going to win this game!
Zwallos is your 2024 special event Barcelona winner. Give it up for Zwallos!
Zwallos Tournament story is just one of many. I made a video about the Barcelona story because I found everything coming together so well. The 4th place, Maxi, played awful on stream on day 1, but he entered day 2 on a 7-win streak. The 3rd place, Tomahawk UK, brought many off-meta picks and dominated so many games with buffed Pokemon like Mantine, Diggersby, and Superior. The 2nd place, Pataman, played 2 regional tournaments and reached top 2 in both of them, which is a performance very few can rival. He rarely loses. And the tournament winner, I don't think he needs more introduction. I just made a whole video on him. This video took a long time to make due to editing, and I'm probably not super efficient at it either. But I like setting these kind of experience in stone. So yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I hope you liked this video as well. And you know, I'll be going to all European regionals. I'm very much looking forward to so many of these. Maybe we'll see there. Hope you liked the video and see you in the next one. Bye.